I think this camera fell a little bit. Kind of creepy though.
Yeah, a little bit. Kind of scary.
All right, here we go.
And now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright and so on. It's a rigorous training dished on who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Welcome to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. In this week's episode, evaluating your horse and what your tail can tell you, managing quarter cracks, and also when does a horse need pads or cushions under their hoofs. All this and much, much more will be discussed here on Equine Dynamics. And over to my far right-hand side is Mike Stine. How are you?
Hello, Travis. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. You got a big smile on your face. Why? What happened over there? It looks like you got like a plaque or an award or some kind of picture frame over there.
Yeah, I did not make it to the Hoof Care Summit this year, but they have a banquet for the IAPF, and
what does the IPF stand for? Because I came up with a couple acronyms for it.
International Association of Professional Farriers.
Okay, and that would be you.
Yes, hopefully. That's the plan.
And so what do you have there?
Well, if you keep your education level up high enough every year, at 3 years they give an award, at 6 years they give an award, at 9 years they give an award, and if you don't keep it up, you start back over. But this would be the silver, which is for 6 years of achieving
Let me see that.
what needs to be done as far as your further ed and plus.
So is this like being on like the super honor roll or the president's honor roll for the, like in school? Is this like because you've done so well and you've done it so well for so long? This is, and you achieved and surpassed everything as far as what's required to maintain your.
Well, they push every year you should do a minimum of so many further ed hours every year.
Mm-hmm.
I probably most years am way past that. But, ideas are always changing. There's research constantly being done. There's new products coming out. And there is so much to this, one person can never see it all. It's impossible. There's too much. It's a lot more than just putting a horseshoe on.
Yes, there's a lot more. And that's what this podcast is about. Now, we'd love for you guys to be part of this podcast. And the way you do that is to go and find Equine Dynamics over there on Facebook. And we can answer your questions right here on the podcast as we do it here. And also, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. And that's found over on YouTube. Again, it's Equine Dynamics. Now, also, we can answer any questions, look at any pictures of your horse's feet, anything that you've got going on with your horse. And the way you send that information to us is to go to equinedynamics.com. And at the bottom of the page, there's a little contact section. Fill out the little form. Make sure you put podcast in the subject line. That way Mike can decipher from all his other emails and stuff that he gets on a regular basis. And we'll answer that question or look at those pictures and post them right here on the very next podcast as well. Mike, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm walking on eggshells and trying to be as tender with kitty gloves as best I can. Horse people are weird.
No, they're not. There's no way.
No, but I am, like I said many times, I'm not a horse guy. I understand the concept of horses and stuff. My wife, she's had horses. She's had horses her whole entire life. I've been to, I think between her being in the horse industry and between me and her dating and then now being married, she's had probably 15 different horses, bought, sold, train, rinse, repeat type deal. So we've been to several barns and, you board a horse here and you board a horse here. Fortunately, we were lucky enough in life to now have a large size property where we have our own barn on the property. We have our own arena, which is an open arena on the property. But during this time of year, the fields and the arena gets a little wet because of the snow. Now we broadcast just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. So we're in our rainy, snowy season. So the ground tends to stay wet. And so what she's done now is taken this horse, or the horse that we have now, and she rides dressage to a covered arena facility. And the barn houses, I mean, that's all they do. They just board horses. And there's like 25, 28 stalls, big, huge arena covered, big open arena out there covered. So I brought this up to my wife the other day, and she's like she had no idea that this happened. What happened was we were dropping the horse off. So we had the horse trailer out there in the front of the property. She's getting the horse off of the trailer, and I'm like, she's got like a box or something, like a rickshaw, and I'm bringing it around to the stalls. You know, the stall that I've got that we're putting the horse into. So I walk in there, and I'm with this guy who's letting us use his truck at the time. And me and him just walking here. He's got, a saddle on his arm. I've got the rickshaw box, the lug box, the work box going around, and we put everything into the stall. There was a lady in the main aisle. She was tacking up her horse. I know this because I've seen my wife tack up a horse. I know what she's doing. And hey, we're new here. I said to her, hey, how are you? You know what I got? Hi. Whoa, okay. All right, sorry. Caught you on a bad day. And now I go back out, and I didn't say anything to my wife. I didn't think anything of it. So now we're bringing the horse. Here's my wife leading the horse into the stall, and me right in tow, right behind her. She comes around the corner. My wife, to the same lady, goes, hi. Lady perked up. Oh, hi. Hi, who is this? Who is this? I'm like, wait a minute, lady. 2 seconds ago, you wouldn't give me the time of day because now I'm in tow with a horse on my, I mean.
She may not have liked your cologne. I don't know.
And I told my wife, she's like, really? I go, yeah, babe. It happens to me. It happens to me more than her, because if you got a horse and it's tied to your arm and you're anywhere near a horse person, they love you to death. If you don't have a horse on you, or you're not any kind of, I'm not walking around with riding pants on or whatever those chaps that you wear when you're shoeing horses, they don't want to have anything to do with me.
Well, maybe you should get you some riding breeches.
I should just walk around in those all day. Those will be real comfy. All right, guys, stick around. We got a big show to get into. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. Yeah, have you ever come across anything like that? I'm sure horse people are weird.
Oh yeah, just like anything else, you can't make everybody happy.
But it was so funny that, I mean, literally, she went from grumpy puss because I didn't have a horse near me to, welcome to the family type deal. All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
Just don't pay much attention.
I know. I don't either. And they're just as bad as was it the Housewives of Orange County or whatever, one of those housewife shows where they just sit there and they just bicker and talk, and it's worse than high school.
Yeah. Pretty much.
All right. When we come back, you want to talk about managing quarter cracks?
We can talk about managing quarter cracks, yes.
All right. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the official farrier of the 2018 World Equestrian Games. And if you'd like to be part of the show, we'd love for you to be part of the show. The way you do that is go over to equinedynamics.com. If you have any questions for Mike at any time during any podcast, make sure you email him, and in the subject line, just put podcast so he knows exactly what email needs to go where and what it's referring to. And you can also, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. You can see us on YouTube as well under Equine Dynamics. Make sure you subscribe. I've seen your subscriber count actually gone up a lot here recently. I don't know if you've seen that. And a lot of people are enjoying those videos that we're doing here.
Yeah, it's tripled. We've gone from 1 to 3.
We are. We can almost double that here in the next week. Now, managing quarter cracks. Now, earlier in the beginning of this season, I think episode 2, we were talking about quarter cracks. Now, managing quarter cracks. So tell us, give us a brief description what a quarter crack is, and now managing a quarter crack once it happens.
Yeah, the quarter crack is in the side of the hoof, back towards the back. A true quarter crack will split open from the top down. Some of them that are open from the bottom up, people, because of the position, will call it a quarter crack. As far as managing them, it's get the pressure off. Take care of it early, but it doesn't become a problem. That's kind of an ongoing theme with, pretty much everything. But, it doesn't have to be a nightmare. If you get them where they've gone crazy, they've split open, you've got a bloody quarter crack, you've got an area that's inflamed, you got a lame horse from it, yeah, you have to get a little more carried away. But when you're trimming the foot from the quarter crack back, you unload the pressure. If you've got one, you may be able to do it on a horse that is normally shod. On trimmed horses, you will unload the pressure, because the back part, anything that is levering against that, it keeps pushing the quarter crack open.
Now, what is the most common reason for a horse to get a quarter crack?
Well, if a lot of it has to do with how the back of the foot is prepped, and if the heel starts folding under, something's got to give.
Okay.
And then you need to start looking at support structures. Do I need to do something to support the back of the foot? If you got a really ugly one, heart bars have been used.
You said heart bars. That was the one that we were looking at last week, where it had the little Z bar almost in the center or something.
Well,
or not the heart bar. There's a Z bar and then a heart bar that actually forms the shape of a heart.
Right. There's advantages and disadvantages to all of them. A Z bar completely unloads it. You can put a pad on it and cut out the section of the pad where behind the quarter crack to get the pressure off the foot.
Which do you prefer, the Z bar or the heart bar?
Well, it depends on ground conditions. Most of the time the Z bar is probably considered racetrack. One thing you got to look at, especially with some of these bigger horses, is where the Z bar is placed and losing support of the bone column. If you got a horse because you left that area open on the shoe where the bone column is buckling in, maybe a heart bar is a better choice. If you got a horse that's out on turnout on our clay and gravel, one where that's completely open may not be the best choice. You can also there are multiple frog support pads where the frog support has some give to it that can be used. If I got one that's really bad, I prefer to go to a buttress plate where you plate the back third of the foot all the way across, and you can, it uses the frog as a support, and you're also spreading the pressure out onto, using the bars a little bit, which you can use the bars a little bit as long as they're properly prepared, and get some of the pressure off the wall. If you've got a really unstable one, you need to start taking care of that. Mm-hmm. Then when you go past that, I've got some pictures of one where we ended up removing the back part of the foot all the way up to the coronary band because it was so inflamed and so unstable. And you can build them, use your acrylics, use your fabrics, use a plate if you need to stabilize them. But if you got a really inflamed area, you don't necessarily want to build over that, because if you end up with an abscess under it and you do a lot of building, you might have created a problem. If you do stabilize it, there again, you clean it out all the way to the bottom. If you need to, you need to medicate down the bottom of the crack, mm-hmm. build up, leave some distance. You don't build all the way to the coronary band. That's where you use your weather stripping or whatever to control your build. And either run a tube or something in there that can be pulled out, so that if you got one where you have it all the way down to sensitive tissue, you can flush it with some Novosan, some iodine mix. You don't want to burn it, but you need to heal up that area.
What's traditionally when you do all that, what's the recovery time on that? Is it a week, 2 weeks, months, 2 months?
Months.
Is it really?
It's months.
So this is something just lack of maintenance. If you have your horse maintenance every 6 weeks or whatever the condition of your riding conditions are, this could be prevented.
Right. Well, if you're paying attention to the stresses in the horse's hoof, mm-hmm. when you're trimming a hoof, as the foot bows, you will actually form hardened areas up at the coronary band because there's pressure building. Okay. If you're really paying attention when you pick up the foot and you feel that, you can float out that area and relieve that pressure before it even becomes a crack. And the other thing is how well you prepare the back of the foot. If you do a really good job of preparing the back of the foot, getting your heels in the right place, taking care of that, rarely are you going to have a problem with it.
So quarter cracks could actually be totally preventable. Under your watch, let's say under your watch, with your silver certificate over there, under your watch of 6 years of being more accredited, the award that you won, that you've gone up and beyond, under your watch, quarter cracks could technically be prevented.
I'll say that I don't have much problem with them.
Okay.
I try to be proactive as opposed to being reactive. If you look at these, upper level event horses, jumpers, horses that are hitting the ground hard. It can happen. Now, most of these horses are going to wear clips, and you do build pressure at that point. And I've heard some people say, well, clips cause it. Well, I've had horses come to me with quarter cracks that have never seen a clip in their lives.
Now, when you say a clip, pretend that I'm the idiot that I am.
Okay, I'll pretend you're an idiot. No problem. A clip is a piece of metal that comes up on the outside of the hoof wall to help stabilize the shoe. Okay, sure, it is a pressure point. If the heel is folding under, that is a pressure point, and is blocking pressure between there and the clip. And it probably builds a little more pressure there than if you had an unclipped foot. But there again, sometimes you get them on a barefoot horse. So that, it depends on your situation, on what you do to manage it. I was asked a question about the clip when you take care of quarter claps, when you put them back to work, what do you do about the quarter pressure on the clip so they just open back up? And I'm like, well, how's the back of the foot being? I know it's being prepared right. And I'm like, yeah,
it shouldn't happen.
I kind of left it at that, but I find that I don't have much problem with it. If you look at the way I prepare a foot now as opposed to 5 years ago and 5 years ago, I've changed things and I've learned things from watching how the foot reacts. And that's something that only experience can tell you. You've got your textbook drawings of this is a balanced foot. But when you're dealing with horses that are under a lot of pressure, you've got to live within the realm of what foot they give you. And sometimes you need to create a certain amount of, it may not be dead perfect balanced, but sometimes you need to keep some mass because you haven't have enough mass between, the coffin bone and the ground. When that gets too close, that's a problem. And sometimes you need to have enough mass for the horse to work on, especially with some of these big guys.
All right, stick around when we come back. Last week we were talking about what the mane can tell you. Well, this week we're going to talk about what your actual horse's tail can tell you. All this and much, much more. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back.
I can get some collection of some of these therapeutic shoes and bring them in here at some point.
Okay, yeah. I think of like a Forrest Gump with his therapeutic legs. You okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the 2017 American Eventing Championship Farrier. And the... Hold on. I got to start that one over. I totally blew that one. Hold on. Let me start that one over. That's a first.
You've never, ever... Yeah.
No, not with you. I've done it on other shows, but I've never done it on this show. And I was like, well, I ran out of actually something to talk about. All right, here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is or was the 2017 American Eventing Championship Farrier and has also won his 6-year silver certificate over there for achieving more education up and beyond his actual requirements for being a farrier. Now, if you want to be part of the show, the way you do that is go over to equinedynamics.com. Make sure you send us an email. At the very bottom of the page, there's a contact section. Send any emails, any questions that you have for Mike, even pictures you can send to Mike as well. Make sure you put podcast in the subject line, and make sure you follow him on Facebook at Equine Dynamics as well. And over to my far right-hand side is Mike Stine.
Hello, Travis. Ready to do this?
Yes, I am this time. I messed up the first time. I had to redo it. Now, evaluating your horses. Now, there's more than just... when you're a farrier, just shoeing a horse and pulling the shoes off and cutting the hoof and everything like that, you've been trained to look at the way the horses move, the way their shoulders lean, the head's down, all the different lines and angles that go with shoeing a horse correctly and properly. Last week we were talking about the split in the mane and the way your horses, the line structure is not there. This week you're going to talk about what the tail can tell you. Now, I know my wife goes out there. We were talking about my horse had a spa day. So spa day means, taking the horse's tail and shampooing it up and giving it all the conditioners and getting all the crudiness out of it. And that's a spa day from a horse. Now, what does the tail actually tell you outside of it just being a tail?
Well, I got a cute little story with that. I was sitting in Miss Nora's house. Miss Nora was a client that I worked for. She was actually in the Arizona Horse Racing Hall of Fame. And we were watching some horses run. And Miss Nora says, number 7 lost the race. And just a few strides, the horse start backing off. Number 8 just lost the race.
So is she still around?
No. She just passed here recently.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
At 95 years old.
She would have been one to take down to the track then.
Oh, yeah. But the problem was, she says, I could win bets all the time if I could see that before. I said, what are you looking at? She says, I'm watching what their tails are doing. That's okay. Explain. When they're running nice and easy, they got a nice, good float to the tail. And then all of a sudden the tail starts stiffening up and starts moving tighter. And sometimes they'll actually turn the tip of the tail up and they're just, look, you got me. And then the horse passes them. And if you watch them for just a second, you'd see watch that tail start tightening up, the back end starting to shut down in the horse, and all of a sudden the next horse just cruises right past them. And she was like, boom, that one's going to lose the race. A few strides out, he's backing off.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
But you kind of can't tell that when they hadn't left the starting gate yet.
Yeah, this is true. So what are we looking for before they leave the starting gate, or just sitting in your stalls or in your barn, or before you do any of your riding, your hunter jumpers and dressage lessons or anything like that? What are you looking for in the horse's tail?
Okay, one of the first things I'm going to notice when you bring a horse out is are they carrying their tail really tucked up tight? And you can lift the tail. When I was working with Clyde Caldwell, he was kind of a chiropractor / farrier, or was, and he was really into a lot of body work. And he said that's one of the things. He said you pick up the tail and see if the tail moves easy. He said typically they're going to be tighter in the back end or not. And, some breeds, the tail can shift all. An Arabian tails can kind of be a little different, a little wiggly. Saddlebreds, I don't really work with saddlebreds. I have done a lot of Arab sport horse work. But Arabian, they might have their tail curled up and off to one side. Well, typically with your bigger European horses, thoroughbred stuff like that, they're more apt to have the tail hanging in the center. Now, it's just like the mane. It doesn't always mean anything, but it gives you something to check. But if I got a horse that constantly carries the tail out to one side, is he dropping the pelvis on that side? Is he rotating the pelvis forward? Okay. I've got to get that horse where what I'm doing mechanically on the ground to help him be in a position where he can carry his pelvis a little straighter forward and a little more squared up. Because for them to do their nice extended trots down the center line, if you watch them coming down the center line, some of these horses are dog tracking coming at you. And if they're not lining themselves up in the pelvis, guess which way the hind end's pushing. So that's gonna give you some clues right there. And watch a horse in the arena. Watch how their tail reacts. Is a horse comfortable moving free, or where's their attitude going? A lot of times a horse's attitude is caused by pain. Horses get blamed quite a bit. Oh, he's just a bad horse. Well, something's irritating him. Saddle might be biting him. You may be getting off one side and gouging him on one side because you're not carrying yourself in the center of the horse. And all this can affect the way the back end tracks. But you can watch horses and, in the ride, and if they start dropping out, you can see that tail shift out to that side if they start dropping out on one side in the back end. And, in my business, I need to look at a horse about 30 seconds and pick up boom, 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 and start putting the puzzle together.
Right.
Because that's what it's all about. Basically, like Tony Gonzalez, when I worked with him, it's like, okay, the tail's not where it should be. Why? Okay, he's shifting his pelvis. Why? What's happened? What's that causing? I've got an odd movement, rotation in the limb on the ground. Why? Does it start off from an imbalance problem on the top? Or are we doing something else up top that's causing that to shift, that's causing that leg to plant and rotate?
So as a rider, you would need physically someone to watch the horse and that knows what they're looking forward to, because the rider's not going to be able to see this or note this unless they've got the panel mirrors and stuff on the side. Even still, when you're turning around to look at the left as you're tracking to the right or whatever, the horse is going to feel it's not going to do what you want it to do. So you physically need someone on the ground, a trainer or someone like that, who's familiar with the horse and what to look for for the tail. Hey, look, this is what's going on. Let's see if we can fix this.
Right. A tail that's really tight, he may not be able to get his pelvis under. One that's really supple, he may be coming under. And there's a real cute trick we've got these days. You got to, watch what you do everywhere, because everybody's got you. We're videoing you.
Yes.
I had one of the horses that's new to working with Brett. Your wife also works with Brett.
Yes.
I was down shoeing horses. He says, I feel like we need to get a little more out of the back end. Can you do it? He says, oh, by the way, take a look. So he pulls out his cell phone. Yeah, I agree with you. He said, and we can adjust around that. But it's real easy to take a video. And, when I look at horses from other parts of the country, I get videos. And, when we do video evaluations.
Right.
And, nowadays it's real easy for me to talk to somebody somewhere, shoot me a video. I can do it in the truck on the phone. It's nice if I can put it on the computer.
Right. Larger screen.
And I've actually had to learn to on and off button, and I found out that thing that pops out the side and slides out that holds the disc, that's not a coffee cup holder.
No.
I did not know that. But
so they can send you a disc of a video of your of the horse.
The digital world has changed how we can operate quite a bit. But when I'm doing clinics for horse owners, it's primarily how to pick up things the horse is telling you. Mm-hmm. When I did the clinic at for the Hoof Care Summit, that's what my clinic was built around. I was not looking at feet. I was looking at horses' bodies. And they're telling you an awful lot standing there. So if I got a horse standing in the ties and you see how that tail's hanging, then you reach up and you feel them. I always pat a horse. Well, usually when I'm rubbing on somebody's horse, I'm doing a little more than just rubbing. I'm feeling for something. Mm-hmm. Ray Morris was a massage therapist, and I ended up helping teach with Ray. And we did a run of clinics together. We lost Ray to health problems, and he had me massaging and helping him teach massage because he had such a big interest in horse owners wanting to. And he taught a lot of people in New Zealand, Australia, and also up here how to do some body work on horses.
He didn't have one of those massage guns like I do.
Oh, no.
He just used his fist and palm.
Well, no, but, so much of massage is feel. Mm-hmm. And he always taught with your hands. And, I can go in to a spot and you feel your way through it as you're working it. And you feel the proper time to release. And you start learning that. And I'll shock you one day. You will find a muscle on the horse that's tight. You pull out your massage gun, I'll go lay my hand on it. I'll get it to release a whole lot faster than you would.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so I would rather, I'm not going to say I don't ever use power to massage a horse, because I've got a large massager for horses that covers big areas. And it does real big general loosening. If you're using guns, don't massage on the bone. You're not trying to massage bones out of a horse.
Yeah, I know. My wife, I've got a bad disc in the back of my wife will do my butt for a certain time, and then she'll hit she'll hit my spine right there, and it sounds like it's knocking on wood. It's like da 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 da. I'm like So the horse, I feel what the horse is going through if that ever happens.
But back to the tail thing, it's giving you some guidance. You watch how the tail is flowing. If you're not picking up on what the back end of the horse is doing exactly, watch what the tail's doing when he's working. He's going to start telling you, is he happy or is he not happy? And then you start going to the whys. And then you answer that question why all the way through the horse.
All right, guys, stick around. When we come back, we're going to talk about whether your horse needs pads or cushions underneath their hoofs, when and why. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamic with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. You okay?
Yes.
I don't think you're doing anything wrong or anything. It's just a habit of me just asking.
Right. No, that's fine. That's fine. You ask and keep going. It'd run off the rails every now and then, but we'll come back somewhere.
Well, sometimes if I don't ask, when I do ask, you'll go, hey, can we talk about this? Or it'll just trigger something in your mind. So I just always
sure,
ask.
and that's not a bad thing.
Kind of wrap up the show. Good?
Yep.
Yeah. Are you enjoying this, Mike?
I am.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I am. It's nothing but a party.
Yeah, I love doing this. I love doing this with you. This is fun.
Good. And you will never understand horse women.
Oh, here we go.
Of course, I had a horsewoman one time ask me to explain men to them.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't do it. I don't understand them.
I have a hard time understanding myself.
Right, exactly.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcaster to create sounder horses from the ground up. If you want to send Mike Stine a question about your horse or video or anything like that, go over to equinedynamics.com. At the bottom of the page is a contact section. Fill out that little form right there, and you can be part of the very next podcast. Get your questions in. In the subject line, please put podcast. That way Mike can decipher between all the other different emails and stuff that he has. And if you want to see this video for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. I'm waving to Mike. Mike's waving to me. And you can find this over on YouTube under Equine Dynamics as well. And also follow him on Facebook and all that stuff. And get your questions in as soon as possible. Now, we were talking about quarter cracks and all the stability and Z-bars and heart. What was the heart bar? Now, I notice there are sometimes there is like a pad or like a piece of leather in between the hoof and the shoe itself. Is that a pad or a cushion? I mean, what's the definition of a pad? What's the definition of a cushion underneath a horse foot?
That is a pad or a cushion.
It's both.
It depends, yeah. Depends on what material you use. There are rubber pads, there are hard pads that are plastic, there are pads that flex, there are pads that have very little give to them. I came up with some old school farriers, so I use a lot of leather.
Okay. And what do you find that's best outside of the old school leather? What's the best material, I guess, each to his own as far as situation and what you're familiar with working with, or what's that gives you the best results?
Why are you doing it?
Or why are you doing, I guess.
Why are you doing it?
Yeah, okay. So why are you doing it?
Well, a fair amount of horses, your wife's horse, I'm doing some things mechanically to the shoe to help raise angle. The leather I'm using has a little slight wedge in it. Now, I like leather because it gives under the foot. And it does give you a little cushion up front between the shoe and the sole. And the sole, or actually not the sole, but the wall of the foot. Sometimes there's a little bit of a shock absorber in there. And they make pads that are meant to be basically a shock absorber between the shoe and the foot. There are other pads that are rigid. Some of these horses that have very thin soles, sometimes we need to help them out. Now, ideally, I would rather not pad a horse. They help us out in a lot of situations. There are some therapeutic reasons to use some of the therapeutic pads with frog supports and what all. And also, if I've got a horse that is mechanically not squared up, I used to pad a lot of them. Now I pretty much never do. And I work with a lot of horses that are not moving correctly, that are their body is out of square and it's curved, not tracking straight. When I was working with Gonzalez early on, I used to have to use pads. And, the thing of it with doing that is you can over pad them very easy and end up down the road causing some compression problems. Same thing with like running a shim on one side. But the more fine-tuned I've got with how I prepare the foot, the less I need it for those reasons. I can usually figure out a weird pressure thing going on the foot, adjust that, and not even install a pad and get the horse to work into it and start evening themselves out and squaring up. But I've been messing with uneven horses back, into the early 90s when I first met Gonzalez. And so it varies.
So is it a bad thing, or is this just a natural occurrence? If you have a horse, don't be shocked that you're going to have a pad or a cushion underneath your horse's foot, because horses are just the nature of horses are being,
Well, if you get called in, and I had a horse the other day that has been chronically thin-soled. The wall is flared out. The horse couldn't walk on hard top. And because of the horse's life, it was on hard a hard surface way too much. Now it's either on the hard surface or, well, in the swamp, which that's not ideal either. But we got to do something to get this guy happy. He can't walk. And so the walls are blowing off shorter than the sole. And the problem is he's getting on the sole and he's compressing the sole back up against the coffin bone. You start bruising it. I mean, it's been long enough. The edges of his coffin bone are kind of moth-eaten looking. And we need to get this guy happy. And we need to grow some foot on the horse. In an ideal world, he would have it and we wouldn't be doing this.
Right.
But guess what?
Now you got to put cushions and pads in there to make up for the...
And I plan on this being temporary because we need to get the hoof wall stabilized enough that it can be the primary load-bearing surface instead of the sole being the primary load-bearing surface. The sole's not supposed to be... It's a passive load. And so we got to protect this foot for a little while. Ideally, in a world, if you got a horse that's a little bit of tenderfoot, I'll tell people right quick, get a sole hardener, get you a can of Venice turpentine, paint on there, start toughening those soles up. The catch on it is if you keep a horse under pads for a long time, you can soften the sole because it's not like you're working with work gloves on or you throw your work gloves away, you get callus on your hands, correct?
Right.
Well, you're going to get some of that even with the shoe on there.
So the leather's not a permanent, it's a temporary fix to adjust the way the horse is tracking.
Oh, well, ideally, and I rarely use one for the horse being uneven up top, and that's a whole nother big can of worms.
Okay.
But, like your wife's horse, we're going to shoot x-rays on the horse. I'm doing a lot with the mechanics I'm building into the shoe. But we're going to have some follow-up x-rays and see what's happened internally. If your lateral cartilages are not too destroyed and they'll open up some, we can start getting away from it, which it would be ideal. I would rather not have the pad on the horse. But if we have to keep this animal where we can work it without damaging tendons, or without damage suspensory, without beating up the coffin bone, well, that's what we got to do because, she wants to do what she wants to do with the horse. And there are horses out there, because of what we've done to them, are lacking in where they need to be. And we got to create a situation where they can be okay.
Right. Just kind of help them along, get them through. All right, guys, we're going to take one more little quick break and then come back and discuss what we learned today. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. You said you got to work on horses today?
I do.
I don't want to keep you any longer than you have to be. So.
No, I don't have to get there till 1 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go get me some victuals before I go.
Okay. How far do you have to drive?
I'm going to head down to Indian Land.
Indian Land. I don't know where that's at.
That's on the other side of Waxhaw, just in South Carolina.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've been here for 9 years, and I still don't know. I know my little 20-mile radius, and then when I used to work in Charlotte, that was it. That's all I know.
That's all you needed to know. That's all you needed to know.
Well, I was born and raised in Orlando, man. I knew, I could tell you every town from Jacksonville all the way down to Palm Beach almost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Florida. Weirdos out there.
I'm not saying anything about people from Florida because you're sitting here with me.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. Over to my far right hand side is Mike Stine.
Hello, Travis. We're back again.
We are back again. Make sure you want to be part of the show. We'd love for you to be part of the show. Make sure you go over to equinedynamics.com. Fill out the little section there, little contact section. Send us your emails, questions, pictures, videos, anything you have like that. And make sure you follow them on YouTube as well under Equine Dynamics and Facebook as well. Now, Mike, what did we learn today? Managing quarter cracks.
Well, take care of them early. That way they don't become a problem. If they are a problem, we can deal with it.
Evaluating your horse and what the tail can tell you.
Well, the tail's sending you signals as to where to start looking, just like the mane is, and they're sending us all kinds of signals once we learn to read them. The horse is screaming at us a lot of information constantly. And
when does a horse need pads or cushions, or they're all in the same boat underneath its hoof?
Well, pretty much when my truck payment's due, but there are times when we need to do something to help these guys out. And if they're in too much of a bind and we need to get out of it quickly, if you got a horse that's doing damage to the coffin bone because it's being too beat up, we should have done something before that point. There are good reasons to pad. Ideally, I would rather stay away from them unless I really need to.
And don't forget, Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF 1 accreditation, and he won a silver, 6-year silver. I keep calling it a silver certificate. What is it actually?
It's a silver certificate. It's what it says on there of achievement.
And congratulations on that again, Mike. All right, guys, on that note, we're going to let you guys get back to what you got to do. See you guys next week on behalf of Mike Stine over there.
Have a good day. Have fun with your horses and go hang out with horsewomen, Travis.
My name is Travis Holmes. We'll see you next week. Bye.
All of the doggies are in the corral.
I think
All of your work
for me, it's getting more relaxed. Well, it's easier for
close your eyes and dream, little pal.
Well, you know what to expect now.
Dream of someone.
Let's see. I think we started it.
Hi, Lucky.
Good night, Ned.
Hi, Dustin.
Good night, Ned.
Good night, Ned.
42, so we started at 15. We ended it right at 11 o'clock.